we have our final panel today, which we saved the best for last. I fear I've been up here too much, but I'm going to moderate this one. I'm really thrilled to introduce 4 incredible women who are working in Transmedia for good. Ingrid Kopp, who's the Director of Digital Initiatives for the Tribeca Film Institute. Libby Leffler, you can clap. Go ahead, give her a clap. Libby Leffler, Strategic Partner Manager for Causes and Nonprofits from Facebook Partnerships. Didi Bethurum, who's the Director of Digital Strategy for 10 by 10 Girl Rising. And Lindsay, Guetschow, who is the Senior Director for Marketing and Strategic Alliances for Participant Media. Yeah, you can sit. Did I say something, Libby? Was it, you know, like... So I also want to say thank you so much to all the streamers. We still have close to 3,000 people who are streaming online watching today. So we're really thrilled to still have them tuning in for this final panel. So what we wanted to talk about was Transmedia for good. What does this mean? You know, for a lot of us that work in, whether it's a domestic issue or an international issue, we try to run something called a campaign. We try to force issues, change policy, win hearts and minds to serve often people living in poverty or people with a deep need that's not being addressed. And so Transmedia for Good is such a powerful opportunity that we see evolving for how do we really reach people? How do we reach people with new stories? How do we drive them to action? And how do we have real impact? You know, I think we hear a lot about storytelling. It can be a word that can be hackneyed or just kind of thrown out at a conference. And I think what's so great about this group is that you all really use storytelling to have real measurable impact on a variety of issues. So I'm really thrilled to talk to you all about it. I'd love to start with Ingrid and your work with the Tribeca Film Institute. And I think she has an image to share from some of the website work that they do, if we want to bring that up while we're talking to her. What would you say about TFI and some of the kind of innovative work that you've been doing for some of your campaigns and what you've seen in terms of evolving from that work?
Sure. So this is actually from something we just released called the Sandbox, the TFI Sandbox, because one of the things, thank you, one of the things that I've noticed in the work that I've been doing is I do spend a lot of time trying to explain to people what interactive storytelling is, why we're doing it, what some of the kinds of projects are. And we thought if we put everything in one place and do this every year, then we're starting to sort of think about field building as well as supporting individual projects. So this is sandbox.tribecafilminstitute.org. You can go look at all the projects we've funded so far, as well as some of our other digital initiatives. But yeah, I mean, going back to what Meighan was saying, for us, with the TFI New Media Fund, which is funding nonfiction social issue projects, supported by the Ford Foundation, so much of this is it's about campaigns, but it's also about how you actually use storytelling itself to engage people. So we're really thinking about this idea of the people formerly known as the audience. How do you engage them when they can do more than sit back and watch a film? So the sitting back and watching a film is definitely part of many of the projects we have, and obviously an incredibly powerful part. But it's also about engaging people through web-native documentaries where actually they're making decisions while they're watching the film, and maybe it's a non-linear experience through mobile apps and tablets, through games. So it's really experimenting with different kinds of engagement and different types of non-passive activity in the storytelling process. And then one of the other things is a lot of our projects, the audience are actually the project. So we had a project in our first year called 18 Days in Egypt, which actually allowed people on the ground in Egypt to tell their own stories and invite their family and friends to tell the story with them using social media. And the creators actually built a platform so where that could happen. And we've got a project coming out soon called Hollow, which is actually built in collaboration with a rural community in West Virginia. So that's going back to what you were talking about who gets to tell stories and who gets to listen to them. And increasingly in the work that we're doing, that's something that's very important to me and to the creators is really thinking about who gets to be part of those stories. And then where those stories can go. So we think a lot about digital access as well. And finally, I just mentioned one other project, New Day, New Standard is a project which is actually pretty analog. It's a lot of radio, and then using regular landlines so that domestic workers in New York City can find out about their rights. And a lot of that actually involves little cards that they give out in playgrounds to nannies. So when we're thinking about digital storytelling and engaging people, it's not always about the latest technology. Sometimes it really is about super simple analog things, but it's always about pulling people into the story and making them feel included.
I think it's incredible, and it ties so closely into what you're working on at Facebook, Libby. And I know when we were talking in the hall about this, you were talking about Facebook's unique ability to kind of power these organic campaigns that are storytelling driven. And I know we have a video actually about one of those that really took off, if you'd like to talk about it. And would you like us to play the video first, or would you like to talk about the campaign?
Sort of set the stage of that.
Great.
So, you know, the way we really think about Facebook is simple, right? It's real, authentic identity. So anyone in the world, any single person using Facebook, using our products, using the platform, can actually use that to have real voice, which is pretty powerful. And we've talked about this before, right? You know, the work that I do at Facebook is to manage our platform integrations with causes and nonprofits. But really, some of the most interesting stuff that happens every single day on Facebook are really grassroots organic things that real people like you, like me, like any of us have launched and created movements. And so I wanted to show a really quick video about one man, his name is Jay, in the Philippines, and kind of the work that he did to make big things happen with little things. You'll be able to see when we play the video.
It was one of my friends who encountered this community of seaweed farmers in a mangrove area 500 miles south of Manila, where children were basically swimming when they were going to school. That story really touched me. So I updated my Facebook status, and one of my friends challenged me. It made me think we should do something about it. So we started a mini fundraising campaign, and we raised enough money to buy them a boat. But one thing that we didn't realize, in the afternoon when it's low tide, a boat is kind of useless. You can't just give whatever you think they need. You have to really find out what their needs are. So it's really a learning process, and it's becoming sort of a relationship. Social media is helping us connect with places that face challenges that we've never even heard of. Now we're looking at a holistic way on how to help them. By helping the high school graduates secure some scholarships from the State College of Marine Science and Technology to get out of poverty and improve the quality of life in the community. By building them a boat, we've never realized that they would create a ripple effect to understand each other and build a relationship with them.
Sometimes the best way to understand these things is to see it, right? To see it, to experience it. And so for Facebook and the way that we think about our products, transmedia is any type of rich content that an individual is using to share an experience, a story, a movement, to start a movement, to engage a community. And so if you use our product, you understand that this can be anything, right? It can be a news clip. In Jay's case, he saw an issue, decided to post a status update about it. His friends communicated that. You know, he's able to post a video. We can post photo content. You can post a collage. With Instagram, right? You can post a ton of different things. You can tell a story. And so transmedia is incredibly powerful for social good because it enables every individual to have real voice. Something that I think, you know, was never previously possible. having real voice in the world, being able to share that real voice, can be an incredibly powerful, moving, inspirational thing. So that's the way we sort of see our product, really, that, you know, Facebook is able to make every global issue a personal one and every personal issue a movement, if that is your choice, if that's what you want it to be. It can be any of these things through that distribution mechanism, through our platform and through others as well. So excited to sort of share that story with you and take some of your questions later too.
Thank you so much, Libby. So I think that's a great segue to what 10 by 10 Girl Rising is doing. So we want to talk to Didi because powerful, that's the word to segue into what you're doing and some of the stories you've been telling. So why don't you give us a quick update and then we'll show the trailer to what's happening. But you guys have had a big week.
It's been a very big week. So 10 times 10 is a global campaign for girls' education. And the centerpiece of our campaign is the film Girl Rising, which just launched officially on Thursday, March 7th. Girl Rising travels to 9 different countries and tells the stories of 9 different girls and barriers that they overcame to try and get an education. And you know, it's been a very exciting model for us. We started the campaign officially back in 2010 and began with lots of partnerships, both with nonprofit organizations that are doing this work on the ground, as well as corporations, Intel, CNN, and Vulcan Productions, but really on the grassroots level as well. You know, starting with even going to schools and going and speaking with people and, doing the old school social media where you actually have a conversation. And, building this network that we ultimately activated with our crowdsourced distribution model. So what we got to do actually is partner with Gather, who does theatrical on demand. And what they do is they allow for anybody in the United States to stand up and say, hey, I want to bring Girl Rising to my community. And Gather gives them basically a goal and says, okay, if you can get enough demand, we will confirm a theater in your community. And because of that, on March 7th, we had over 1,000 requests for screenings and 41,000 tickets reserved. So it's phenomenal what these folks have done. I mean, they all become their own marketing directors. They're using Facebook for events. They all feel a part of the movement. They're going out to their local newspapers and saying, can you put an article about Girl Rising? I need to tip my screening. And it's just been so phenomenal to see people take the movement into their own hands and actually make it their own.
That's great. I would love to see the trailer now.
All
what
right.
does everyone else think? Yes. Could we see the trailer?
Tonight, one of the bravest girls in the world.
Malala Yousafzai became renowned for demanding girls be given the right to education.
Shot in the head on her school bus.
She was a student who wanted to learn, but now she's fighting to live.
Come on, skinny love, just last the year. Or a little soul you were never here.
I was 11 years old when my father arranged for me to be married.
Staring at the sink of
تروح المدرسة؟
لا.
I had heard about the thousands of girls sold to men in those places. I can't really talk about everything that happened to me here, but I will never forget. We have come to this house, the house of her master, to say, you must set her free.
Regrets collect like old friends, here to relive your darkest moments. I can see no way, I can see no way, and all of the ghouls come out to play.
There is no miracle here, just a girl with dreams.
I will read, I will study, I will learn. If you try to stop me, I will just try harder. If you stop me, there will be other girls who rise up and take my place. I am change.
I am my own master now. I feel as though I have power.
Now there's nothing to stop me.
I feel I can do anything.
Wow. So I think this is so interesting for a lot of folks that have worked on issues like girls' education or global education. This wasn't a bunch of policy experts that said, let's go make a video to talk about the importance of girls' education. This was really creatives coming alongside an issue that honestly has struggled to break through, which is interesting because if you poll the American public or people internationally, the /1 issue, and if they're very suspicious of international assistance they will support, is education. But yet the education sector has really struggled to break through in the same way that we've seen with HIV, AIDS, malaria, even water that's doing really innovative work. And then you've come alongside with them and brought resources and creativity to the table that they just didn't even know where to go for that in that way. That's not what their expertise is. They know how to do programming on the ground, but not maybe tell the story. So you've had some really interesting partnerships with the film that have really supported it in a substantive way.
Yeah, you know, I think at the end of the day, well, first of all, Girl Rising was filmed and produced by a former group of ABC News journalists, and you know, they're storytellers. They know how to tell a story, and I think kind of the entire creative notion of making this a success is to find people who are the best at what they do. So, you know, we're not the people doing the work on the ground. Our partners CARE and, you know, the UN Foundation and Plan and World Vision and a host of other folks that are associated with the product are doing that on the ground. And then we have, you know, the marketing engine behind Intel and the, you know, employee organizations that we have with Vulcan and CNN and folks like that that are actually able to power and put the money behind marketing something like this. So I think, you know, making sure, and even the voices, it's, you know, Meryl Streep is a world-renowned actress, and so she's the one who's narrating it, and that's what she's good at doing. So finding people who are the best at what they do and putting those people together to help your story come to life and to bring it to, you know, the biggest scale you can, I think is ultimately what we think would be the best model to distribute this and make the most impact.
No, it's incredible, and I think it's a great segue to Lindsay and what you do at Participant, and you guys are just, I mean, incredible at what you do. We want to talk about something you're doing now called A Place at the Table. Now, of course, for us at World Food Program, we care deeply about domestic hunger too. And one of your champions, Congressman Jim McGovern, actually is a champion on our issues too. And I was lucky enough to see a screening of the film, and it was so powerful. I had people in tears and really connecting to this issue in such a powerful way. So we would love if you just talk a little bit about that project, and we could also watch the trailer for your film as well.
Sure. Thank you so much. I'm obsessed with Congressman McGovern. He is amazing and such a hunger hero, and he's been working on this issue for so long. It's just wonderful to be able to give him some light to share the work he's been doing for so long and use this movie as to create this movement behind him. But I'm Lindsay. I work at Participant Media, and we are a company that exists to create entertainment that inspires and compels social change. We truly believe at our core that a good story, well told, can change the world. So that's the very start, that's the starting point, and then we have to create sort of a social action campaign around it. So hopefully once people are inspired, enraged, excited, we give them a place to plug in. And like Didi was saying, we by no means think that we're experts in the space. We work on a lot of different films around social issues, but we do feel like we're experts at finding the experts. So we want to work with everyone that's been working in the space forever to give them a film to help sort of elevate their voices, elevate the work they've been doing on the ground for such a long time, and use this story to help put a face to the issue. A lot of times, like you were saying, it's politicians talking about it, or we hear about stats and numbers and whatnot. So we want to create a compelling story that puts a face to the issue that hopefully will drive people to act. So we've got a really sort of comprehensive social action campaign that starts with a text at the end of the film. That's how we engage people immediately. And then we plug them into our social action database. We did a lot of research before we launched our campaign to find out what would be helpful to the folks on the ground working within this space. What can we create and leave behind that isn't in the space right now? We want to help our partners. So we found that 72% of the people that we polled said we'd like a place where we can go, like a one-stop shop to find everything we can do around this issue, locally, nationally. So we created, with our partners, Share Our Strength, a national action center. It's a first of its kind where we have a top-line advocacy ask that's around protecting the safety net and SNAP program that helps the folks that we're talking about, but also we've brought together all of the local initiatives that are working on the ground. So if you plug in your zip code, no matter where you are, you can find out what's happening. And we've broken it down by 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Do you have a half hour? Do you want to volunteer? Do you want to donate? How do you want to get involved? Because we recognize through a lot of the research we do and the work that we've done on our other films, how I want to take action is different from how my mom's going to take action. So we want to create different entry opportunities for folks to get involved. We're creating a game around this to sort of put folks in the shoes of people that are living in food insecurity, because unfortunately, either you're hungry or you're not. And you know, if you haven't experienced what it's like, it's hard for you to relate. And this is such a pervasive issue that's happening here in the United States, and no one is talking about it. So we're really excited to get this film out there, and it's through our power of partnerships that we're able to help elevate it and drive it forward, and hopefully we can keep folks coming back to the film and to our campaign, and keep this issue sort of within the national dialogue, make it a kitchen table issue. So yeah, we'd love to show you the trailer. And we released in 32 theaters, which was kind of unprecedented for us with a typical documentary. We did online as well at the same time, so we're on iTunes and on demand as well. You can find us. And in a week, we'll be launching our TUG partnership, which is similar to Gather, where folks in communities that were not open theatrically, they can bring the film to them. So we're very excited and trying to reach people through all platforms.
That's awesome. Why don't we watch the trailer if the team wants to cue that up?
It's a problem that people are ashamed of acknowledging.
It's very humiliating.
It's tiring.
What are we going to do?
This generation will live sicker and die younger than their parents' generation.
Hunger is right here in the United States.
And the problem is getting worse.
The reason people are going hungry is not because of a shortage of food, it's because of poverty.
1 out of every 2 kids in the United States at some point will be on food assistance.
I was one of those kids that was hungry. It messes with you.
The average food stamp benefit was $3 a day. There are people who are living on that, and you really can't.
If you have a limited amount of money, you're going to spend it on the cheapest calories you can get, and that's processed foods.
My dream is to go to college, but I can't tell my kids, I'll make sure you guys eat in 2 years. I'm struggling to even feed my kids every day. Put that in there. Okay, that was a bad idea.
As many as 50 million Americans rely on charitable food programs.
I haven't received a pay raise in 4 years, and what I used to spend on a month in groceries now gets me about 2 weeks.
It's amazing how the need has increased. Charity is a great thing, but it's not the way to end hunger. We're weakening our nation.
But I don't really know what to do.
Was a documentary in 1968 that put hunger on the national agenda.
Regular Americans rose up and demanded a modern nutrition assistance safety net, which helped us almost end hunger entirely by the late 1970s.
It showed that public policy could work, political will could work to make a difference in our country.
There's probably 600, 700 chefs here, all really committed to helping this problem that we have with childhood obesity and hunger.
Working to make sure that families have access to quality, affordable food.
It's so good.
There's a lot of education that needs to happen around what is healthy food.
Give your ideas for change, for the healthy life of your kids.
We all have a stake in this.
It's about patriotism, really. If another country was doing this to our kids, we would be at war. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Such a great trailer, such a great film. It really is.
Thank you. It has been a true labor of love. It has been my personal passion project at Participant Media, so it's so exciting to finally get it out there and have folks see it and get involved.
Yeah, well, I have a question for the group, and then we can open it up for 1 or 2 questions. But actually, for Lindsay, it's Barbie that was the mom that's in the trailer. Isn't that her name? So when we saw the screening in D.C., Barbie got up 2 rows ahead of me. And what I just burst into tears, and I said she was my hero, and she was amazing. And as a mom as well, I so respected her. And I think about the film, the thing that's the commonality I see in what we're talking about, these projects, is also how we depict, I'm not going to say the beneficiaries or the subjects or the people we seek to help, but our protagonists almost in some ways. You know, when I look at the film from Facebook about, you know, here was a local hero that saw kind of a problem and solved it. It wasn't someone coming in from the outside. It was a local-driven solution. We talk about Egyptian activists and some of the work from TFI. If we talk about Girl Rising, you know, it's actually authors and writers from these countries themselves featuring girls that they chose, writing their own stories. You know, and here we're seeing people talk about their own challenges and what they're working on. And that's such a radical shift, I think, when we think about how charities and nonprofits often have communicated visually. It's about us and them and us helping them. And I think sometimes we still fall in that hole as charities and international nonprofits. I would love to see it change more. Could you say a little bit about that shift and how important that is for just how we depict people and stories and how we capture what their experience is and how that's different? Does anybody want to respond to that?
Well, I mean, I guess, sorry. I mean, only that's actually why the TFI New Media Fund came into being, because it was conversations that we were having with the Ford Foundation when we were setting it up around that, like around what that discourse is and who it empowers. And I think sometimes, you know, we go to see these films and we feel empowered, but it's not necessarily actually helping. It does become a bit of an us and them thing. And there are some aspects around documentary that I think were making me increasingly uncomfortable. I've worked in docs for many years, and I was starting to feel uncomfortable about that us and them kind of mentality, which I think also goes into the NGO world. And what I think is powerful about this, and we don't always get it right, by the way. I mean, I think that there is still a lot of that happening. It just happens like on a grand scale and very publicly. But I think what is powerful about social media is that it's a public conversation that so many people can be part of. And when as a creator, you then create a space for that to happen, that's when I think this work that you are all doing can really kind of become powerful and start to undermine that slightly uncomfortable sort of dialectic.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add, you know, we recognize in all the work we're doing, we can't talk about these social issues and not have the voices of the folks that are experiencing the problem not at the table. So wherever we go with this film, wherever, you know, we're doing panel discussions, we always want Barbie, someone from Witnesses to Hunger, somebody who's experiencing this and can actually say, this is what I need to make my life better at the table. So I think it's changing, but unfortunately not fast enough. I think it's up to all of us to make the commitment to make sure those voices are always included, because that's why we're doing the work that we're doing. And I would say, too, as part of our campaign, we created a SNAP alumni gallery. So we're going out to folks across the country to tell us your stories. You know, were you ever on food assistance, and how, you know, you've gone on to have productive lives. So that's, you know, trying to be as inclusive as possible.
And I think the greatest thing about social media is if you're following the project before the film comes out, you know, we introduced all of our girls and tried to give some context. But if you followed it after, we're going to start to give updates. We're going to continue to keep those personalities that you hopefully have connected to in some way alive for you, and you know, keep that connection strong and show kind of the progress and show what the impact has done in their lives. So I think that's probably the most exciting thing about, you know, the post-film social media play.
The two-way dialogue is so important, right? It's so important, and it's really very powerful. It gives people the opportunity to share their stories and other people the chance to see those stories and figure out how those stories, you know, what it means to them and how they can help, or how they can make sure that this doesn't happen in their community, or how they can take action. And that's really different than ever before, right? Than we've ever seen before. This is a real shift in individuals having voice, being able to gather communities, create movements at scale. So in the past, you would be able to create a community movement, right? Bringing some people together in your own community, a small group. It doesn't matter the size, but now you can do this at scale around the world with people you've never even met before. And so that's why the work you guys are doing is so impressive, right? Like creating this opportunity to see into another person's world and foster a dialogue around that, have updates, understand who they are, where they're coming from. I think that's really powerful. And so we see that, you know, all of the time on our platform.
So we're coming to the end of our day. I would love to at least get one question. I see the front row is raising a hand. What question do you have for our panel?
Yeah, so as an individual, I mean, the answer to this is really simple. Individuals on Facebook can have 5,000 friends. If you have hit 5,000 friends, you are a very popular person. As an individual, you could turn on follow, right? So people can follow you. They can subscribe to your updates. We were previously calling that feature subscribe. And people can follow you. So anyone can follow you, and anybody can receive your global updates. So that's one way to do that if you're, as a public figure, interested in sort of continuing that dialogue. And many public figures do. You see mainstream celebrities and others. For your nonprofit, the right way to connect with people is through a Facebook page.
I have it too.
Great.
I have the Facebook page.
Great.
Alike Connected.
Yeah.
And then I have created a community page because I wasn't sure, if that was the right way to go, so I could expand my voice.
Yeah.
The voice of my community.
Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah, absolutely. So you are. And it's, just, I know we're almost out of time, but we hear lots of stories about people like that, right? People who are going through really big personal things, whether those are health things or emotional things or job things or whatever it might be. And they use Facebook to create a community around that. And many of them find it to be, a really great way to connect with people, and in some instances really therapeutic. So it's great to hear your story.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that story. Well, I hate to say it, we're at the end of our day, but I feel like we ended so strong. And what an incredible panel of women, creatives, filmmakers, activists, advocates. I feel so thrilled that this is how we finished out our day. So thank you. Can we give them a round of applause for our final panel?